This is probably the single best time to be a real estate investor that I've ever seen, in my 20 years. It's what you know. And the reality of it is that today, a 25-year-old kid with some technology savvy can come in and dominate a market very, very quickly because the amount of technology and data that is readily available, sitting at people's fingertips. They can zero in on exactly who the best buyers, exactly who the best sellers are in any market.
What we're talking about is the law of sowing and reaping. As you sow, so shall you reap. And yet, what are most people doing? Sowing lousy thought seeds. Right? Your head trash is the voice in your head that says, well, I can't do it because. And everybody fills that in. Well, I can't do it because I don't have the time, because I don't have the money, because I'm not smart enough, because I'm not good enough, or whatever. The naturals don't have that. They're like, of course I can do it. When you tell yourself, I can't do it because, you're going to make yourself right.
Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Hacking Real Estate. This series has the potential to have massive impact on you. As a matter of fact, for many people, they already said it's having big impact on them. They've learned things about investing in real estate that has caused them to take action. I want that to be you also. The ability to learn something that can translate into a better financial future for you. This world is in a really weird predicament right now. There's a lot of insecurity when it comes to finances and our financial future and the economy, etc. And I have to say that during these periods, it's people who've invested in real estate or seek to find real estate as a way to invest that usually find a path forward that is a very positive one. So I want you to continue to engage, continue to tune in, make sure that you're focused, be ready to take notes, all those kinds of good things, those success habits that can take content like this and turn it into a better future for you. So I want you to know that I appreciate being here with you right now for episode 5. Also, please know that during the free viewing period, as I've mentioned before, you can own this entire series with several bonus episodes and as well other bonuses that are very valuable at a very steep discount. So now's the time to do that. We're getting towards that halfway mark now of the series, so you should be kind of checking out what's going on there and seeing what's right for you. In the meantime, we have episode 5 queued up for you right now, and I'm excited to dive in. Let's go. Next up, you got another character, right? A guy who's created great success before he even got into real estate. It sounds like Kent Clothier. So what was that experience like?
This guy was fascinating to listen to. It's almost somewhat fearful. This guy's, his strength just comes through. He's been an entrepreneur since he was little. He knows how to run a business, make money. He and his dad had a grocery arbitrage business. Like, that was new to me. Sold it for over $1 billion, got into real estate. The family-run real estate business is hugely successful. And he, again, what I love about almost all of these people is they want to give back. Yeah. And so as he got successful, again, another guy that learned how to do it, created educational platforms. He's really easy to follow.
Awesome.
Great mentor.
Well, with that, let's jump in. Kent Clothier.
Kent Clothier, hello, and thank you for taking time.
Oh, my pleasure, brother. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so let's just jump right in. This is great for us because you're a real estate investor, expert, and teacher. And so that's a great fit for us. And for somebody who's a little nomadic at heart like me, I love that you're worldwide. So I'd like to get into a little of that. But if you would, let's start off and let us get to know you a little bit. Tell us about who you are and your real estate career, where you're at.
Sure, man. I got started in real estate back in January of 2003. Prior to that, I'd been in an arbitrage business for many, many years that I built from age 17 to 30 that was very successful, but ultimately I ended up walking away from and which kind of led me to real estate. I'm a product of one of those late night infomercials when you're down and out and don't think you got anything left in the tank. I actually am one of those guys that went and purchased a program back in the day and was just desperate enough, had my back against the wall just enough where I needed to do something with it, with what the investment I had just made. And so
desperation can be better than inspiration, right?
amen, brother. Amen. So got in the game, highly motivated, as we touched on, and did my first real estate deal about 22 days later.
Wow, you were fast.
That was called wholesaling. And not a lot of people out there know what wholesaling is, but it is where you have the ability to put a property under contract and control it and effectively flip your interest in that contract to someone else. And so you're not really bringing any money to the table. It's a way of controlling a transaction and moving and making, a nice little chunk of change. And so once I did that, and once I understood how to do that, I got really good at it and started doing hundreds of those deals a year. So got back up on the horse and had solved the income challenge relatively quickly. Inside of a couple of years, I was back to making good money and doing, something I really enjoyed, but I had not solved the time problem. I didn't really own a business. I owned a job, a high paying job. And so got really dedicated to figuring out how to not only scale it, but scale it very methodically and put systems and processes and people and all that kind of good stuff in place, like I had done in my previous job, our previous venture, I should say. And, built a really big business. Fast forward to where we are now. Our family run organization called REI Nation is based in Memphis, Tennessee, and Dallas, Texas. We operate in 11 markets. We do roughly 1,200 to 1,500 real estate transactions a year. And that is where we are buying the property, rehabbing the property, putting a renter in place in that property, and turning around and flipping that to investors as performing assets. And then we stay in place and manage those assets. So we manage roughly a little over 7,000 houses as of right now, and single family homes in 11 different markets. And like I said, buy and sell every single day. And then that, which allows me, because of all those systems and processes, to kind of live my dream, which is I get to live here in beautiful La Jolla, California, and educate people on exactly how powerful real estate can be. So Real Estate Worldwide is the company that I run, that is our training and software company and coaching company, which we've had the humble pleasure of serving about 60,000 students over the years and about 30,000 software users, and get to be on the front lines on the investing side, but get to live vicariously through a lot of our students from all over the world. So it's a really unique position to be in. And I'm very, very fortunate.
Congratulations. Must have been one hell of a late night infomercial.
And I don't know how good it was or how desperate I was. One of those things where, when you pull the trigger, you have no idea what path, as Steve Jobs said, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking back. I certainly at that moment was not looking to go and build an empire. I was just looking to stop being broke.
Yeah. So if I can start at the beginning, your first deal out of the gate was wholesaling.
Yep.
Right? And you stayed with that model for quite a while?
Stayed with that model for several years, including to this day. I mean, we still wholesale hundreds of houses. In addition to our turnkey business, we wholesale hundreds of houses every year as well.
How you finding them now?
This is probably the single best time to be a real estate investor, or anybody that's in the real estate space that I've ever seen, in my 20 years. And the reason why that is that, back in 2008, I introduced a process to my tribe called reverse wholesaling. It's something I'd had a lot of success with in the grocery industry previously. And it's basically starting with the end in mind, figuring out exactly who the customer is and turning the model around and interviewing the clients, finding out exactly what they want to buy, how much they want to spend, where they want to buy, the price they want to pay, all that kind of good stuff. And so when I started down that path in the real estate space, I had no idea that, or I certainly didn't appreciate that effectively the real estate space is driven by data. It just wasn't back then, it is now. And here's what I mean, I'll tie it together. A real estate transaction is a matter of public record. When somebody buys and sells a deal, or buys and sells a home, I should say, all of that information becomes accessible at some level publicly. And so when I got really good at this in this particular in the industry, I was going out and finding all of the best buyers in the market by searching data, going down to the courthouse and the county recorder's office and digging up a bunch of data and then turning around and marketing to these people that were buyers and introducing myself, finding out exactly what they wanted to buy. By virtue of them paying cash, which I could also see in public record, I knew that they were investors. I knew they weren't retail buyers. And so I built my business this way. And then I built a software company that would go out and actually do all that work for me in any market, meaning that now I knew it could be done manually. So we needed to automate that process. And one thing led to another. Now we live in an age, this was just 12, 13 years ago. We live in an age where that process that we had automated and kind of introduced has now become explosive, meaning that there are hundreds of companies like ours out there that do a great job at taking data and mining it down. I mean, we think about all the data that we don't even realize we're giving to the social media companies, right? I mean, I think we know it now better than we ever have, but the reality of in real estate space, whether it's your credit file, whether it's a transaction you just did, whether the U.S. Postal Service recording your house is vacant, whether I can easily tell that a property across the street is owned by somebody out of state because they are, their tax bill goes to another mailing address outside of the state. All this information is floating around us. And so how do you find deals? Well, you use data. You go out and you mine data and market directly to people who are in the exact scenario you want them potentially to be in, somebody that you can actually help, somebody that owns a vacant property, that lives out of state, that's over the age of 55, they've owned it longer than 10 years, they're in financial distress, because we can see that from their credit file. I mean, that's why this is such an amazing time, is because technology and data has never been more available than it is right now. When I got in this business, that didn't exist. But today, a brand new investor can operate effectively with the same tools as a hedge fund in 30 minutes.
It sounds like you've really one of the things you've done is defined your target, very much so, right?
Amen. Not only define your target, but understand your target and your prospect on the buy and the sell side so well that the guessing in large part has been taken out of the equation. Unfortunately, as in any industry, there are legacy processes, legacy systems, things that people do because they've always just done it that way, whether it's advertised in newspapers or put out, whatever it is, whatever the legacy.
It's what you know.
It's what you know. And the reality of it is that today, a 25-year-old kid with some, technology savvy can come in and dominate a market very, very quickly, because the amount of technology and data that is readily available, sitting at people's fingertips. They can zero in on exactly who the best buyers, exactly who the best sellers are in any market. And then it's just a function of putting the deal together, right? Used to, you'd have to drive up and down the streets and look for vacant houses, or go knock on doors, or send, a variety of different things to try to just stir up some interest on a general sense. Those days are long gone, if you choose to, operate that way.
So I'm just going to spool back for a little bit. One of the things I like that you did, you kind of figured out the financial part early on by wholesaling. You didn't have to find a ton of money to start flipping paper, right, basically, and earning money, finding a job, creating a very viable job,
no doubt,
without having to find all the financing. That was pretty clever.
Yeah, and I mean, I certainly can't take credit. I mean, I learned how to wholesale. That's the course that I bought back in the day. The spin that I had brought to it was that I quickly connected dots. In my previous business, the grocery arbitrage business, we had built a multi-billion-dollar company, and we didn't manufacture anything. All we were doing was effectively playing in an inefficient market. We would go and see where a manufacturer was selling a product like Maxwell House coffee, where they were selling it in one market at a tremendous discount versus 1,000 other markets where they weren't. And we were very entrepreneurial. We would go into that market and deal with all the retailers and wholesalers and buy up as much of that product as we could, basically out the back door of the stores and the distribution centers. And then we would put it on a truck and go ship it into other markets where we could make the spread because the manufacturer wasn't discounting. And in a lot of ways, wholesaling in real estate is effectively the same thing. You're just taking advantage of a very inefficient market. Now, the key mechanism that changes there is, when I was 27 years old and took over an $800 million a year company in that arbitrage business, by the time I was 30, we're doing $1.8 billion a year. And so that $1 billion in sales growth came from the naivety of a 27-year-old kid looking at the model a little differently, being so dumb and naive that he could ask a question like, why do we do it this way? And then once I understood that the only reason we were doing it this way is because it's the way that everybody always done it, then I said, well, why don't we just go ask every single customer, if I could sell you anything at any price and any quantity delivered on any day, what do you want to buy from me? And then just work the deals backwards instead of just fighting over everything that everybody, they get 20 trucks of Peter Pan peanut butter. They call me and everybody else. And, we're all fighting over the same truck and it's a race to zero. What about if I just go create the market? And the same is true in real estate. There's a lot of people that fight over the same deals over and over and over. And they're, using the exact same strategies that everybody else uses. And, I'm all about, hey, get enough information where you can go and actually create your opportunities. And that's the spin on wholesaling that kind of changed things for us.
So what's that information you go get?
I go out and I go talk to every single cash buyer. Well, first off, I do the research, right? And, like I said, now all this is automated, but you can literally go into a piece of software today in real time. And I can, sitting here in La Jolla, California, I could type in Akron, Ohio, and I could tell you every single cash transaction that happened at any length of time. Let's just say for the last 90 days. I can tell you exactly who those buyers are, the price they paid, the addresses of the properties they purchased. I can tell you their mailing address, their phone number, their email address, all this, right? And so then once you've got that information, that's extremely powerful because you're kind of operating with a stacked deck now. Then reach out to those buyers through direct mail and create engagement and let them know, hey, I'm here. I have the ability to go create off-market opportunities for you, but you're going to have to get on the phone with me. We're going to have to talk about this. And I'll tell you exactly how I'm going to go about that process. So then once that, ravenous buyer is now picking up the phone saying, yes, please do this for me. Please, please, please. They will go through a litany of questions and tell you exactly what they want to buy. And if you think about it from a real estate perspective, how powerful that is and I'm not talking about retail buyers. I'm not talking about, Joe and Samantha driving up and down buying their first home. I'm talking about somebody who wants to buy 10 houses a month, somebody who wants to buy 150 houses a year, these institutional type buyers. They will tell you exactly what they want, the price they want to pay, everything. And if you want to talk about making your investing business, making your wholesaling business specifically a lot easier, just go solve half the equation before the process is even started. And that's what that does. I know all my job becomes is I just have to go and create opportunities that fit into this box. I already know what my buyers want to buy. I know the price they're willing to pay. I know how fast they'll close. I know the neighborhoods they want to be in, you name it. And when I take that off the table, now all my energy is just going towards, okay, I'm not going to market all over Akron, Ohio. I'm going to market in this one zip code to people who own vacant properties that are in this very specific situations. I'm going to do I'm not going to, go hunting with a shotgun. I'm going hunting with a sniper rifle. I know the people that are in the exact scenarios where I have the opportunity to help them put a property under contract and turn around and flip it ultimately to my cash buyer. And that's how you build a business, man. You just take all the guessing out of it.
Yeah, it makes complete sense because I'm listening to you and there's zero speculation.
There's no risk. We're not thinking, right? And the beauty of it is anytime you're trying to scale a business and you're trying to put people in place, the more, going back to the Henry Ford model, if you can put somebody in a position to where they are doing repeatable tasks, revenue generating activities over and over and over, and you're taking the guesswork out of their hands, making their job easier for them, then now it becomes replicatable. Now it becomes a predictable selling machine. It becomes a process. And so when you're trying to scale and you're trying to turn up the media, turn up the spend, open up new markets, but you've got all this information and you're putting a quality person in the seat. If I can make it easy for them to just know that this is exactly what we're trying to do in these very specific scenarios, very specific markets, very specific zip codes, man, now I can scale it. Now I can take it up to where, our business today does 150 flips a month. And we're very proud of that, but we've got it dialed in to where that's possible.
Is that 150 between the 11 markets?
Correct.
Yeah. So, this is, I love that you say it's a great time, a perfect time to get in, but so many of these markets have exploded, and you put an offer in, there's 10 other people bidding on it. Mm-hmm. What are your processes to find? Because I'm sure you must be finding things off market, right?
That is correct. And I would even go further, and I would, if I was talking to my team, I would be telling people, remove the word find. It's that specific with us. We are out there, we create. It is our job to get to people even before they were thinking about selling a property, right? Because at the moment that we're dealing in a retail environment, we're already, we can't even compete in that area, right? Because in order for us to make money, we have to buy at a discount, period. And there's only so much of a discount. When somebody's trying to sell a house retail, there's only so much of a discount they're going to give us because we're coming in here and moving fast and paying cash. So we have to be able to create those opportunities. And it really goes back to the data that we're talking about. It all starts with the list. It all starts with our prospects that we've identified, thousands and thousands at a time. And then we will surround them. It's our job to try to be omnipresent, meaning that we are going to send them very specific direct mail pieces, which are highly, highly effective to pique their interest and let them know there's an opportunity if they need help. They've had a recent loss of job, bankruptcy, foreclosure, whatever the case may be, right? We are not focused on the retail side of the market. What we are focused is on really the crisis side of the market. Unfortunately, crisis never takes a day off, right? It doesn't matter whether we're in an up market, down market, doesn't matter. The bottom line is crisis exists every single day. And the moment somebody experiences some kind of life-changing event, then in many cases, if they have real estate, they're looking for a very quick solution. They don't have the opportunity to wait. They don't have the opportunity to pay the commissions or do the repairs to the house or any of that kind of stuff. So we want to be able to be on the front lines with those people and let them know we have the ability to come in and solve your problem very, very quickly, get cash in your pocket and get you moving on your way and get this headache out of your way. And so that's what we're targeting on the seller side. So we'll be sending direct mail campaigns. We'll run Facebook advertising to those exact same lists. We'll do outreach campaigns over phone and text to those people. We want to be everywhere they are so they realize, in a lot of cases, most people just don't even realize there is a solution like this available. But we want to make every effort to let them know that it is available and it's available to them and it's very real.
I like it because it's not predatory at all. You're offering me a solution to my problem.
Absolutely. I mean, look, at the end of the day, the customer is always still in control. And I will tell you that 95% of the prospects that we reach out to, if not higher, have no interest in doing the deal, which is fine. And like I said, the customer still has the ability to say no. But for that 5%, this solution, this opportunity to get this headache out of their way is very real, very viable, and very beneficial.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's a percentage of those rejections that somewhere down the line, something come right, because life happens.
Fortune is in the follow-up, and this is a people business, and those that stay in it, those that stay in contact with those people, those that keep nurturing those people and building real relationships instead of just making this highly transactional. Those are the people that win. The transaction people, they are high income earners that just go from deal to deal to deal. Quite frankly, I have zero interest. What to me, where the rubber meets the road is, how do you create a sustainable business that's well thought of, that operates at the highest levels of integrity, that is infinitely scalable, where you can help a lot of people along the way on both sides of that. And you don't do that by just wham bam, thank you ma'am, just I'm in and out on every deal. It's, hey, what can we be doing to keep nurturing and building relationships with people where ultimately either they or someone they know needs to sell, they realize that we can get them some help.
So back when you started to build a business, I mean, you're having success wholesaling. So then you create a little bit of a business, right? You got some employees, other people working with you as you're
Correct.
scaling up. When you looked inside you and went, what do I want what is down the road, right? 10 years, 20 years. I don't want to say end game because we're not at the end of it, but what did you want this to provide you and yours?
It's a great question. I'll tell you that I'm extremely fortunate because I've had really two business lifetimes, right? And so I touched on it earlier. The first business I built when I started when I was 17, I got married when I was 23. And so I was the guy that took a ton of pride in being the first one there, as we do when in our 20s, right? You don't know what you don't know. So in my 20s, I loved being there at 5 o'clock in the morning, leaving at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. Nobody was going to outwork me.
First in, last out.
Yeah, and I reaped all those rewards, right? Financially, this business was doing, seventh largest privately held company in the state of Florida, doing $1.8 billion a year. We were crushing it at every level, and I had conned myself into believing I was doing this for my family, right? Married my high school sweetheart, had a young son at home, and little did I know that I was doing it at the expense of my family, right? It was what I would tell myself so that I felt good about what I was doing. The reality of it was, as I've gotten much older now, I just realized that that's just the BS I was telling myself. So when I got a second lease on life, right, after leaving there, running into all kinds of big challenges that ultimately almost bankrupted me, just basically melting to the ground between March 14th of 2000 and December of 2002. When I tell you I had reached that place where I was just desperate enough to go and down to check out what they were talking about on the infomercial, that's where I was. I was just in a really, really desperate place. I'd lost everything that I'd ever built. And so when I got the opportunity to build it back, and I started falling, quite frankly, into some of the same patterns, the adrenaline rush of being able to flip these deals and get going again, it all felt great. And I stopped myself, and I got, I had a profound eye-opening moment in that I was now remarried and I had a new baby on the way. And I realized that if I wasn't careful, I was going to make the same mistakes I'd made before. And I became just wildly passionate about, I am going to put the systems in place. I'm going to put the automation in place. I'm going to put the people in place. I'm going to fire myself as often as I can. I'm going to try to get out of the way in every way, shape, or form, because ultimately my idea of what I want in business is I want options. That's it. I want options, meaning I don't want to have to do one thing in order for this business to grow and prosper and create impact for millions of people around the world. I don't want to have to do anything. I want the ability to do everything, anything I want to do when I want to do it. I want that option in my life, but I don't want to have to do anything. And so when I became very focused on creating options and creating time freedom and really, being super intentional with what I was doing every single day, this business is very different than the one I had before. I have the option to do whatever I want to do in this business or not do in this business, and it's not going to suffer in any way, shape, or form. It'll continue to grow. And so what's the grand plan? Keep doing that.
It's a great one. What I love about that is, Kent, is to me that's kind of the nut that resonates with me, because I know we've talked to so many great investors who are really doing a great job training people, their careers. They've created massive wealth, and one of the threads is it creates freedom, right? I mean, not that they haven't worked hard to get there, but to get to freedom. And I like that you had that epiphany early on that was going to be the goal, right? I like how you said the option to do nothing, the ability to do anything. Yep. I'm writing. I'm tattooing that somewhere. I love that. So I think having that epiphany and that mindset was probably a real key to, I wouldn't say fast tracking, but getting you to where you are, because then you built everything on that goal.
That is exactly right. I mean,
Not a number, not a next deal, the bigger deal, but that life goal.
amen. I mean, that's exactly what I look. I'm old enough now to appreciate the journey that I've been on, and so I can see things for what they are or what they were at the time. Maybe if I didn't see it then, I certainly see it now, and I can tell you that epiphany and some others were key moments where I just simply I was highly motivated. If I had not experienced the loss of what I had gone through before, the humility of that. I can't say that I would have made, the same types of decisions. But having that worthwhile experience, again, looking back and connecting that dot, and having something I could rely on that told me, look, you don't want to go back here again. You've got what it takes to build something amazing. But if you don't pay attention, you're naturally going to fall into a certain set of rules that are not necessarily going to be what you want. Being smart enough to take control at some level and continue to try to take control has made a big difference in my life, for sure.
Beautiful. So now let's dig into how we do that. All right. So you're wholesaling. It's working, right? How you're finding people. I like that you're very targeted, and I love that you took the speculation out of it by going almost reverse engineering, right? You're finding the investors, which actually wasn't all that difficult. The data's out there.
Well, at the time that I did it, and the irony is you use the word reverse because it's the term we coined is called reverse wholesaling. At the time, the data, it was all analog, right? I had to go down but now, yes, now we live in an age where, again, not only our company, although we were at the forefront of bringing it out, there are many great companies out there that do very similar things. That data is readily available. So yes, back to what I said earlier, this is an amazing time just for that one simple fact. It's never been easier.
All right. So easy to get the data, find the investors, and then you found out exactly what they were looking for. So now you know exactly what you're looking for.
Yep.
And it's the not waiting to find things on the market. Like I said, you took the word find out. So then you find you locate all the properties that fit what the investors are looking for.
Correct.
And you just start a campaign.
You start the marketing campaign. You start hustling. You start figuring out a way to get it across the line. And look, it sounds, in the wrong context, this sounds way too logical.
Well, that's what I'm liking here.
And I agree, in the absence of really good system or, any kind of logical process, this sounds like, I don't understand. Why is this such a big deal? You have to appreciate that this is completely contrarian to literally everything that is taught in this industry, and has been taught for 50 years and is still taught to this day. I would argue that 95%, if not more, of wholesalers and flippers and real estate agents and everybody out there, they do not do it this way. And what they are taught every single day is go find a property that's you're driving up and down the street and you see the mail falling out of the mailbox or the papers stacking up in the driveway. Go knock on the door, go make a phone call, do what you've got to do, get that property under contract, as my mentor used to tell me, get it at a substantial discount. And if you're not embarrassed by your offer, then the offer was too high. And I will never forget them telling me that. And so if you can get it at a substantial discount, then magically the buyers are going to appear and want to buy it from you. And that is literally the way people are taught to do business today and have been forever. It's the way I was taught. And from my perspective, it seems completely, although it does work, it seems, one, it is not scalable in any way, shape, or form. And two, it seems, again, just kind of the hard way to do it. If I know or can know exactly what my customers want to buy, I mean, all the way down to the street they want to be on, and I'm not taking advantage of that information and using that leverage point to push my business forward, that just seems kind of ridiculous to me. And so it is what it is.
So you've been wholesaling. When did you start buying it? And you're basically providing turnkey properties for investors.
Correct.
When did that happen?
In 2010, when the market started acting crazy, I was in South Florida, and I had a lot of cash buyers, and my brother was in Denver, Colorado. My father was in Memphis, Tennessee. So my brother and I, Memphis, Tennessee is probably the least sexy real estate market on the planet, period.
I do love Beale Street.
And Beale Street's amazing, but when it comes to real estate and everything else, it's just not a particularly sexy place, right? But when you were in South Florida, when you're in Denver, when you're in California, and keep in mind at this particular time, this is when the markets were melting to the ground and you get all this kind of stuff going on. When you got all this going on, the ups and downs, well, this looks real sexy. And so we started taking buyers into Memphis, Tennessee, and showing them these relatively inexpensive properties compared to where they were accustomed to buying, where somebody could buy a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,300 square foot house for $100,000 that would rent for $1,000 a month. A house that anybody would love to own. It's not some tear down. It was built, and is built in 2000 or 1995 or newer. I mean, these are beautiful houses in the Midwest, but on the coast, people are just not accustomed to seeing that. That exact same house out here in La Jolla, California is $2 million. And so we started taking people into Memphis and showing them what was going on, and they started buying up these houses, and one thing led to another, and suddenly we were selling houses to out-of-state buyers. And although they loved buying the houses, they had a new set of challenges. And those challenges were that, well, now I need somebody to help me get the rehab done. And now I need somebody to help me with the property management when I turn it into a rental. And so quite organically, we started that process of managing these entire systems for it. And we did it, quite frankly, very selfishly. In full transparency, again, we are a family of entrepreneurs, and so in an effort to keep our customers buying, one of the easiest rules of keeping a customer buying is just make it easy for them to keep buying. Make it easy for the transaction, make it natural. And so, in an effort to keep our buyers buying, we knew we needed to solve some problems, and one thing leads to another, and next thing you know, now you're in the rehab business, now you're in the property management business, and it goes on and on and on. And like I said, we're sitting here with an organization today that's flipped, over 7,000 houses, manages over 7,000 single family houses, 11 markets. Any given time, we have 250 rehabs going on right now. I have a staff of 100 people in 11 cities.
So you're dealing with a lot of out-of-state buyers?
Correct.
And they're getting into investment. So you're probably dealing with a lot of people like myself who have 1, 2, or want to get their first couple, right?
Exactly.
So what are you telling me to watch out for? How are you guiding me?
Well, I want to know, why you're buying, what is the outcome that you're looking for. A lot of times people are buying real estate. We're dealing with somebody who has probably more now than we've ever dealt with. We have people that are coming to us and they have a significant tax problem, quite frankly, right? They're making a lot of money and they don't have a way of offsetting that income, and real estate is a great vehicle to do that if you understand the tax code. And so that particular client is all about, okay, how can we get you into the properties that are going to help offset the taxes? What are the unique things that we can do working with your CPA, working with your tax strategist? They're not really looking for the cash flow, right? They're looking more about, hey, I need to take down $500,000 worth of properties, and I need to get the depreciation. I need to offset, these taxes, et cetera. And then the cash flow is just a added benefit for them. Other times we're dealing with people that they are very, very serious about coming in and buying 2 to 5 properties a year, and they have a financial plan. They know what they want to do for the next 10 years. They want to look up in 10 years and have a 50 property portfolio that's worth, $7 to $8 million that is producing, $70,000 a month for them and completely paid for. And they need somebody to assist with that process and make that all a reality for them in a very systematic way. I mean, somebody that was coming to us that says, hey, I just want to buy a single property, in complete candor, we probably wouldn't do business with them. We would probably just tell them, look, there's plenty of other people that can do this for you. We're in the business of trying to help people build, portfolios over time, and whether that's a couple a year or whatever it may be, we're looking for that long-term relationship, and we're very, very honest with our clients about that, because it allows us to actually get into the process with them, right? 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, versus we just don't want to be in the transaction business, right? We just don't want to be in that, hey, one hit, we're done. Those are usually the ones that are the loudest. Those are usually the ones that if they're making a couple $100s a month, that's a couple $100 is everything to them, right? That's not a really great client for us. We're not looking for the people that are, this is their last hope. We're looking for people that are being very strategic to try to do something big. And their pain point, quite frankly, is they know they should be in real estate for a variety of different reasons. They just don't have the time or the knowledge and know how to do it. So we just make that all disappear, because you don't have to have either with us.
Yeah, and I love that, because I think but that's going to be most of the audience, myself and most of the audience, right? We've either just dabbled, or we if we're watching it, we know real estate has value, right? We're listening to you.
I mean, we've all heard, whether it's true or not, who knows? I mean, apparently everything on the internet is true these days. So, but we've all heard it, that whether the wealthiest have the real estate is a big part of their wealth creation and preservation, or whether they whether they did it through real estate. It's kind of neither here nor there. The bottom line is real estate does play a significant part in many people's wealth plans, and for a variety of reasons. I mean, if you look at the tax code, it is very, very clear that the tax code is written by the wealthy
landowners
and by landowners and by real estate developers for real estate owners and land developers and wealthy people. It is 100% written that way. And so if you want to take advantage of the way the real system works and the way real money works, then real estate needs to be a big part of that conversation.
But I like this, because you said you've taken a lot of the angst out of the process. I think for a lot of us who are watching something like this, the idea of buying one property, it may just be to get our feet wet, but the plan is to have more, right? To grow this whole process and to create.
And then you asked the question, or you started asking a question earlier, which is a great question about, what's kind of the first step. The very first step of this process is you realize that real estate is just math. It's just another investment vehicle. And here's something that's unique about real estate and why I bring this up. Everybody does this. When I want to go buy a rental property, where's the first place I look? In my own backyard. I'm looking, I'm trying to figure out, and for no particular reason. I mean, it's probably better. It's more than reasonable to think that the best investment properties are not inside of 50 miles of you, period. Just like the best stocks in the market today, their headquarters are probably not inside of 50 miles of you, right? Whether it's Apple or Facebook or Google or whoever, we buy these companies and invest in these companies every single day without having to go visit the corporate office and meet the CEO we do this every single day. And real estate doesn't need to be any different. You need to look at it as an investment. And when you have good partners, and again, whether it's us or others, the reality of it is that it's very reasonable to assume that there are these great cash flowing markets and great investment opportunities all over the country. And as long as the math makes sense, the investment makes sense, the return makes sense, the team makes sense, then you don't physically need to go and touch it. Is that certainly available to you? Of course, but it's one of the biggest hurdles I see people have to initially get over, is that, man, you can certainly fly to Memphis, Tennessee and come check out the houses, but it's a math equation, right? Is all it is. I'm going to invest a certain amount of dollars. Here's the returns I'm going to expect. Here's the depreciation I'm going to experience. It's math. And what makes real estate unique is that you actually own this asset, and it is a hard asset, but that doesn't mean you physically need to go and touch it and smell it and walk through it and pick out the paint colors and everything else. And if you can plug into a system that allows all of this to operate for you without having to experience any of that, that's a pretty unique situation that's been created.
Well, speaking of math, when you go into a market and you get homes and you turn them and you turnkey them, are you hoping to get a certain percentage return for your investor, your buyer?
We think it's reasonable that our investors get, anywhere from an 8 to 14% return. Our investors think that's more than reasonable, right? In a secure piece of real estate, that can be significant. They use leverage, which again was another thing that makes real estate so attractive. Is that what other investment vehicle the bank's going to give you 75% of the money, right? And so if you put just simple math, if you do a $150,000 home and you're going to put 20% down, $30,000, maybe you're into the whole thing with closing costs and everything else, 40 grand, and then you're carrying a note for $120,000. It's pretty incredible that the bank will give you the money to go make an investment, right? And you're controlling a $150,000 asset for $30,000. And after debt service and taxes and insurance, when you look at the cash on cash return on that, it's the returns can be much more significant than 8 to 12%. And so it really depends on somebody's preference, what they're trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish. If somebody's just got an enormous amount of cash and just wants to deploy it, we always encourage them to use leverage, if can, because it's going to stretch the dollar. And as we all know, your dollars, the most valuable your dollar's ever going to be is today. It is only going down. And so getting the most value in today's dollars is a smart strategy. But again, if it's 8 to 12% on your investment, or could be significantly higher with leverage, either way, real estate is a great vehicle to get into.
So I come to you and I'm ready. I want to pull the trigger and get my first property, and I'm the kind of client you want. I want more than one. I'd like to get to five, feel how it works, get to 10. And then I think once you get there, you've probably got a lot. You've probably got enough to get on to 15 and to 20, right?
Oh, for sure. Yep.
So I've got money for that first down payment. I've got good credit, et cetera. Boom, we find the first one, get in there, it's cash flowing. And I'm like, okay, how do I get the second one?
Same exact process. And in fact, we will have talked about the second, third, fourth, and fifth before we ever sold you the first. We're going to understand what you're trying to accomplish. And as fast as we get that first one under our belt and we feel like enough time has gone by, you're going to get a call from us and say, hey, we're ready to do this again. Let's rock. Let's make something happen here. And, again, we've got 250, here's what's unique about our particular business is that at any given time, we have 150 people waiting to buy. And we have 250 rehabs going on at any given time. And so it's not like, you pick up the phone and say, hey, I want to buy one today. And we're like, here you go. It doesn't work like that. And we've got to work through the inventory and get it out the door, get it completely rehabbed, and then bring it to you. So it takes, every bit of 4 to 6 weeks, even for that process, from the moment that you say, hey, I'm ready, and you've been approved by lenders and all that kind of stuff. It's still going to take us, a few weeks to get the inventory served up. So there's plenty of time for the scenarios to play out in between going from one to the next to the next. Many of our clients, it's kind of like CEOs or executive teams on some of these public companies that they have very, very systematic times when they're selling the company stock or buying the company stock. It's very, very similar. We have people that are, hey, I know I'm buying one a quarter, or I know I'm buying two a quarter. And there's just a plan. And the plan just gets worked over and over and over. And they're working directly with our advisors to make that happen.
People come to you and they want to start building a portfolio. You're encouraging them to create LLC.
Yes, we do. We definitely encourage them. And we encourage them to work with, CPAs and tax strategists, and we'll recommend them and give them if they ask for the referrals. But people who are highly experienced in real estate from an accounting perspective and a tax perspective as well, right? There's a lot of times, whether it comes to, again, wealth creation or wealth preservation, CPAs and your attorneys and tax strategists, estate planners, that the quality of that team makes a big difference. And somebody that really understands what's going on and how to put you in the best position I can't stress it enough. And so, my uncle does my taxes. When you step into this realm, that's probably not a great, unless your uncle is amazing, it's probably not a great idea that to not surround yourself with people that truly understand how to do this and understand how to do it well. And if you don't have them, we certainly provide those for you and make those introductions. But setting up the LLCs correctly, right? Making sure the taxes are filed correctly, making sure there's a lot of advantages to real estate that can go untapped very easily.
So I'm ready to get my second home. And you said system's going to be same as the first home, but you got creative ways for me to leverage money that I don't have to just come up with another. Say I came up with 20,000, 30,000 for the first one. Now that 30,000 is already tied up. I don't have another 30,000, but I'm anxious to keep going.
Look, this is a capital business. I can tell you that if the down payment on these properties is going to be extremely challenging to avoid. It's just that simple.
Okay.
Can you go and borrow money from private lenders to do this and use mezzanine financing? Yes, but I would never encourage anybody to ever do that, right? Because you never want to put yourself in a situation where you're over leveraged in a property, ever. Nobody has a crystal ball. And if you're buying at market rates today in a fully rented property, all that math makes sense on the pro forma. The moment you over leverage it, that's how you get hurt. It's just that simple. And so part of the reason why these banks and institutions want you to put 20 or 30% down, or 20, 25% down, I should say, is to protect you as much as it protects them. Because, if part of how we got into the situation with the Great Recession is all these 100% loans, and if you could fog a mirror, and nobody wants to be in that situation again. We all know where that path leads. And so I would tell you that with those second and thirds, in all likelihood, there are things that you may not be tapping into that you may not know about. A lot of people that have, old retirement accounts, old IRAs or company 401ks that are just kind of sitting out in some legacy account that they've just kind of forgotten about. Happens every day in our world. There's all kinds of ways to bring those monies into self-directed IRAs or self-directed 401ks and deploy that into this, and which is money, quite frankly, you can't touch anyway,
right.
until you're 60 years old. So putting it into these types of investments that are cash flowing and flowing right back into your retirement accounts is an amazing strategy. And so what we would encourage you to do is basically, we're going to go through and try to do a complete financial profile with you and maybe uncover some things and unlock some things that you didn't even realize were available to you. But in the end, you're going to have to put money down on every one of these properties, and you want that to happen.
Yeah.
Because if you're borrowing 100%, you're setting yourself up. That is a ticking time bomb.
I like what you said about your 401k retirement accounts that are over here kind of puttering along at maybe 4-5%.
That.
Yeah, to
right.
Move it over.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are a lot of people when you tell somebody that you can self-direct an IRA or self-direct 401k, you might as well you could be speaking a foreign language to them.
Sure.
Especially somebody from the corporate world. A lot of people have no idea that you can be in complete control of your retirement accounts. We're all taught, because coming from corporate America, that let's just do a 401k, that the company does the match and all this kind of stuff, and then they give you this whole list of stocks and mutual funds that you can pick from. Well, there's an entire industry out there managing billions of dollars that is called a self-directed 401k, self-directed retirement accounts. And you can move that money to one of these custodians. It's regulated by the government. They have all the same regulations. But what happens is, in those environments, you now get to pick the assets that you want to. They don't give you a list of mutual funds and stocks. If you want to take that money and put it into a stock portfolio, you get to control that. If you want to go take that money and go invest in your friend's restaurant that you don't own 50% of, you own less than 50% of, you can totally do that. You can go invest these funds into real estate projects, et cetera, et cetera. And when you do this, all of the proceeds, this is why it's such a great tool, is that the proceeds that come from those investments flow right back into your retirement account. And if it is a Roth retirement account, they flow back into your retirement account tax-free. And so you go deploy $100,000 into a property here, or 3 properties, using our example, and all that rent is coming back in. It's going right back into the self-directed IRA. And let's just say you're making $12,000 a year in rent on each one of these properties. $36,000 is coming back in on this $100,000, and it's sitting there growing, compounding over time, over and over. And by the way, that just keeps on coming, right? The rents keep coming year after year after year after year, and you look up and 10, 15, 20 years, whenever retirement age is, and you want to start pulling that money out, because it's in a Roth, you can pull that out tax free. It's a great strategy for how to grow wealth. Otherwise, all that income is taxable to you, right? It's ordinary income.
So you've got all this going on, and now you're teaching, right? You created courses.
Yeah,
You got
back in
online?
2009, when, think about what's happening in 2009, the entire world is melting down as it relates to real estate, right? While all that was happening, because I was doing reverse wholesaling and I was working only with cash buyers, the very thing that was taking all of my competitors out, which was they all needed banks and banks were running for the hills, our business was exploding, growing, by 150, 200% a year, over and over and over. And so getting a lot of attention, people trying to figure out what in the heck we were doing, how we were being so successful. Had a friend of mine at the time by the name of Fan Merrill from Flip This House, a company called Fortune Builders. And he came to me, he's like, man, what you're doing is so unique. Can you train my people? I also at the time owned a company called 1-800-SELL-NOW, which kind of gave me a little bit of exposure. I was licensing my phone number to real estate investors all over the country by then. And so long story short, I got pulled into the education side because I had developed a software program that was solving a very real problem for people at that very specific moment. I had developed a program where they could go and find cash buyers in any market, anywhere, at a time when banks weren't loaning money. This was revolutionary. And I was teaching people how to do what I was doing because, it seemed like they just kind of go hand in hand. And, before I knew it, inside of a couple of years, we had tens of thousands of people that have bought our software and bought our programs. And suddenly we're in the software and education business. Nothing that I ever wanted to be in. All these things were designed for us to use internally. But it woke something up inside of me when you watch that light bulb go off for somebody. When you see somebody that's struggling and you hand them a real tool and a real process that is very, very unique and that they weren't able to get anywhere else at the time, and watch it change their life, that becomes pretty contagious, man. That becomes something that is compelling and you want to be around as much as you can. And so we got really, really serious about it over, between 2010, 2012, formed Real Estate Worldwide. And the rest, as I say, is kind of history. Like I said, we've had 60,000 students over the years and sold, hundreds of millions of dollars in education and software. Still have tens of thousands of people use our software and education tools right now. We've got our masterminds called the Boardroom Mastermind. It's got hundreds of members in it that meet, several times a year. So I've definitely found something that I'm very, very passionate about and very focused on, and feel very fortunate that I get to do with my life.
Fabulous. I mean, you're adding value and you keep creating options.
Yeah, I mean, it's the, life is good. It's a really cool thing to know that you can connect some dots for some people and have a ripple effect. I look back and I was raised in an entrepreneurial family, and I've said this a few times to people that, my father decided that in his 20s that he was going to walk away from a big corporate job and go into the grocery industry and go stake his claim out there in the world and become an entrepreneur. And so I got to, my dad was 19 he was 19 when I was born. So I had a front row seat to watching this, and was, right there with him a lot of that way. And I never knew anything else but to grow up and be an entrepreneur because of the way I was brought up and because I was brought up in that environment. I just look back and I think of how profound that one decision he was making for his life, how it ultimately led decisions in my life and my brother's lives. And then now, our reach is far and wide, and we have the ability to impact millions of people and wake them up and show them the same thing. And so it's pretty cool when you realize that how one decision can create this massive ripple effect. So I love the thought that somebody out there, somewhere, we're waking them up, we're showing them a new way, and they've got their young daughter or young son sitting there watching them. And the next round of entrepreneurs is catching a front row seat at it, and they're going to go out and do the same in their world, because it's exactly what happened with me. And so that excites me. It gets me really, I really love that.
Sure. When you know what one late night infomercial could do, right?
Amen, man. You never know. And we live in an age today where it's even more profound. Right?
Sure.
You think about one social media post, one one YouTube video, one Instagram live, and some message you're sharing be hitting somebody right between the eyes right when they need it.
One other thing, there's so many spokes on the real estate wheel, right? Airbnb, commercial, land, farm. You pretty much stayed with single family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Look, I get asked this question all the time. It's the machine we built.
Yeah.
So for me personally, look, you don't pick your path. Sometimes the path picks you. As I explained my journey, this was a process that we were just going through, and it was going organically. We never sat down in a room and said, hey, should we do this versus that? I was like, here we are. This is where we are. Let's just keep going, keep going, keep going. And you look up one day and realize you've built, a machine that works. And so for me personally, it's very easy for me to plug into that machine at any given time. When I need to buy properties, the machine exists. That same machine, if you think about it, just 10 years ago, there was a strong argument when it came to multifamily versus single family, because I get to spread out my risk, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I've got one property manager that takes care of everything. It's hands off for me. Well, all those things exist now in the turnkey environment. All the pain that there was associated with owning one property has just been removed, right? There is no pain associated with it. You write a check, you get a property, it's titled to you, you're getting rent every month. You don't have to do one thing. The checks just keep coming. You buy multiple properties through a plan. Now you can kind of tiptoe into the market, and you look up, and now you spread out your risk, not only across multiple properties, but across multiple markets. So a lot of the arguments, multifamily versus single family, at scale, they don't really hold up anymore, right? If in my own personal life, in full transparency, I do buy multifamily as well. I do commercial. I do own commercial buildings. I own investment funds. I own, I'm got a new fund that I'm about to come out with that is all commercial. And so I just love real estate. I'm a real estate guy. I just happen to own a single family, or I should say, I happen to be a part of an organization with my family that owns and operates a company that does single family. It's not like we chose one or the other. This is where we are, and we're really good at it, and there's no reason for us to stop.
Perfect answer. All right, Kent, thank you. Appreciate it so much.
I appreciate you, brother.
Success always leaves clues, and when you have someone successful like Kent Clothier, the clues are pretty profound and quite obvious. I hope you enjoyed that interview. Next, James sits with Noah St. John. And Noah is someone who is very focused on mindset. He's a prolific author and someone who has worked with all kinds of high-performance individuals to get them into the right mindset, to overcome obstacles, etc. Now, what might this have to do with real estate? I think one of the biggest problems that people face when they go to invest in real estate or consider becoming a real estate investor is the mindset, the self-confidence. Can they do it? And you wonder, how much of a role does that play? Meaning, if someone were to just follow a recommended list of things that they needed to do and do that faithfully, would that mean that they'd be successful? And in my mind, the answer is no. Your mindset leading into that is something that's going to be very, very important, something that's going to help you make better decisions, something that's going to help you build your confidence. So this is an important interview for that reason. Enjoy it.
Well, Noah, I'm so excited to have you here. I became familiar with you. I read your book, and, well, let's see, like you said, you're the mental health coach to the stars. Millionaire habits. You wear a lot of really cool hats.
Thank you.
And I love that it seems like it all started with an epiphany in the shower.
Yes, it did. Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Have you ever noticed you always get your best ideas in the shower, right? I mean, it happens all the time. You're standing there holding the shampoo bottle, minding your own business, and suddenly it hits you, right? You get that idea that just would change everything, or the answer to the question you've been facing. And really, that's what happened to me. Back in April 1997, I've been reading self-help books for many, many years. I grew up poor in a rich neighborhood, which I know is a total cliche, but it's totally true. I grew up in a little town called Kennebunkport, Maine, which is one of the wealthiest communities in New England, but my family was dirt poor. And I mean that literally, because we lived at the bottom of a dirt road in a drafty, unfinished house that my parents ended up losing to foreclosure. So from a very young age, I hated that life of poverty and fear and lack and not enoughness that I grew up in. But I didn't know how to get from here to there, because I saw that right down the street there was great wealth and abundance. So I said, how do I get from here to there? So I started doing what any nerd would do. I'm probably the nerdiest nerd in the coaching industry. I'm basically the Sheldon Cooper of coaching, because I just like to get in my lab and roll up my sleeves and just get down to the molecular level, and just figure things out. And so I went to the library and started reading all these books on self-help, personal growth, the classics like Dale Carnegie, Napoleon Hill, Stephen Covey. And they all said the same thing, right? If you want to change your life, you've got to use these empowering statements or positive statements, which we also call affirmations, right? Everybody watching this program, I'm sure, has heard of affirmations or tried affirmations. And so what an affirmation is a statement of something you want to be true. Like, so in my live events or when I'm doing coaching or virtual events or live events for my clients, I like to say, all right, let's play a little game, all right? And what we're going to do is we're going to use these affirmations just like those guys taught us, right? Just like all the traditional success teachers. So I have everybody stand up and say, I am rich. All right, everybody say, I am rich. And everybody goes, I am rich. And you know what happens next? Everybody starts laughing. And I go, what are you laughing at? And they go, well, I'm not rich. And I say, but you just said you were. And they go, yeah, but I don't believe it. See, now that's the problem with the traditional affirmations method, which we've all been taught, right? We've heard a million times. What they say is, well, you just say these positive statements 1,000 million billion cajillion times until you believe it. Now, for some people that worked just fine, but for millions of us, it didn't work at all. And so that's what happened to me. I'd been using these positive statements. I've been using it for years, doing everything they said. You write them down, you put them all over the walls, and really put a lot of emotion into it, right? And, I'm happy, I'm rich, I'm successful. No, I'm not. I'm broke, unhappy, and miserable, right? So it's like, what the heck is missing here? What aren't they telling us? And so one morning, it was April 1997, I was in the shower, and now I was a 30-year-old college student at this time. I was studying religious studies, and I had been so frustrated because I've been doing this for so many years and not getting any results. And so I said, okay, what are we talking about here? Let's time out. What are we talking about? We're talking about beliefs, right? Because if you want to change your life, you have to change your beliefs. So I knew that part was right. So I said, okay, if we're talking about beliefs, well, what is a belief? A belief is just a thought. And I said, so what is thought? Right? And as I began to think about that question, I realized that human thought is the process of asking and searching for answers to questions. Like, here's another exercise I like to do at my events, whether with coaching or virtual or live events. I like to say, all right, now, everybody, I want you to answer this question. Why is the sky blue? Why is the sky blue? Now, you know what just happened in your brain? Your brain started to search for the answer, right? And notice it did that automatically. You couldn't even help it. So I said, wait a minute. If the human mind is automatically searching for answers to questions, why are we going around making statements we don't believe? Why don't we just cut out the middleman? And I said, I don't know, what would that look like? This was a long shower, by the way. Anyway, and so I said, let's see. So you've got the statement or affirmation, I am rich. And your brain goes, yeah, right, right? And in fact, in my books and my training programs, I call it the yeah, right response, because your brain literally goes, yeah, right, right? But so if that's the statement, then I said, well, what would the question be? And then I said, why am I so rich? Why am I so rich? Now, when you ask that question, what immediately starts to happen in your brain? You start to search for the answer, right? And so what we're talking about is the law of sowing and reaping. As you sow, so shall you reap. Now, this is nothing new. It's been taught for centuries. But yet, what are we sowing? We're sowing seeds of thought. And yet, what are most people doing? Sowing lousy thought seeds. Why am I so stupid? Why am I so fat? Why can't I lose weight? Why isn't my business growing? Why is there more month left at the end of the money? Right? And when you ask lousy questions, what do you get?
Lousy answers.
Lousy answers, right. And that creates a lousy life. So as I was standing there in the shower, April 1997, I said, wait a minute. What if, instead of asking lousy questions that lead to lousy answers, create a lousy life, what if we just flip the whole thing on its head? Start asking empowering questions that lead to phenomenal answers and create a wonderful life. And as I was standing there in the shower, April 1997, I said, holy cow, I think I just invented something. And so I said I had to give it a name. And the name that I gave it was Afformations. So it's Afformations. So what I always like to say is we didn't spell it wrong. It's not affirmations, it's Afformations. That's how to remember it, right? And so now all these years later, now, using my Afformations method and my power habit system, which is Afformations is the foundation of everything that I do, but it's not everything that I do, but it's the beginning of the coaching and the training and the programs that we now have. And that's why it's so important to realize that you can now, for the first time, take conscious control of the questions you're asking, change your questions, and change your life.
Yeah, I find it interesting that you were in religious studies.
Yes.
So you were searching for the big answers, right?
I was.
So you were asking the big questions before the shower.
But before I knew how important that was. And you know, it's so funny because a lot of people talk about it's important to ask the right questions. And that's really true. But nobody else ever actually showed how to ask the right questions, right? So they basically said, well, make sure you ask the right questions. And you're like, okay, what does that look like? Right? So I'm the person that actually showed you how to do that. And it came from my own frustration about why isn't this working, right? Notice that's a question, right? So basically all human thought is really the process of asking and searching for answers to questions. And by the way, a lot of people ask me, well, Noah, how did you come up with that word, Afformations? Well, as a nerd, one of my favorite subjects was Latin, right? In high school, I studied Latin. And so the word Afformations, right, the old way that we're all used to, that word comes from the Latin word firmare, which means to make firm. Now, the word Afformations that I invented, and I'm the father of Afformations, is, and by the way, is perfectly legitimate to invent a new word, right? When you have a new way of looking at the universe or a new technology, isn't it true? We often need a new word. I mean, look at Google, Uber, Lyft, computer, software. These are all new words in terms of human history. They've only been around a very short time. Now, of course, we use them every day. So it's a new technology, a new word. Well, what I teach and what I'm describing is a new technology of the mind. Right? So the word Afformations comes from the Latin word formare, which means to form or give shape to. So the question that I often ask my clients and my audiences is, what if you're making something firm, but it's in the wrong form? Then you form the life you didn't want. Why am I so stupid? Why am I so fat? Why can't I lose weight? Why aren't I making the money I want? Right? You formed it unconsciously. Right? But because of the law of sowing and reaping, it doesn't matter if it's conscious or subconscious, right? The law of sowing and reaping, as you sow, so shall you reap. So it doesn't matter. And so that's one of the processes that we use in our programs and our coaching is to show you how to take what's in the subconscious to the conscious mind, and then you can make a choice about it. So that's why, one of the reasons why the Afformations method is so incredibly powerful and transformational for people.
Yeah, when I first started reading about it, and I thought, yeah. And it was funny, my wife's the skeptic. Yeah. And I was explaining it to her, and she wasn't quite getting it. And I said, okay, just instead of saying I am rich, like what thoughts come into mind? And it's like, well, no, I'm not really.
Right, it's the right response.
Yeah, so then it was like, okay, put yourself in a different place. Why am I rich?
Right.
And then you immediately start trying to answer that.
Exactly.
And she ran with it, and the light bulb went off, and it only took a couple minutes.
That's the beauty of it. It is. It's so simple, but it's so incredibly powerful. And here's what I also want people to realize. Everybody on this planet is already using my Afformations method right now. They just don't know it, right? So everything that we're actually asking ourselves is an affirmation. But here's the problem. Number one, most people aren't aware that they're doing this, of course. And number two, and this is the most damaging, they're doing it in a disempowering way. Using these negative Afformations like I've described. Why am I so dumb? Why am I so fat? Why can't I do anything right? Why aren't I making the money I want, right? Those are just negative, or what I call disempowering Afformations. But the point is, most people, of course, don't know they're doing it. So that's why, we invite people to join we call it the Afformations revolution, because it is. It's a revolution of people saying, oh my gosh, I can take conscious control. And we have so many incredible success stories. I mean, transformational stories of people, regular people, 7- and 8-figure CEOs, but, moms and dads and teenagers, veterans, people who have overcome PTSD. I mean, it's just incredibly powerful because that's what we're doing in our minds anyway, and most people are, unfortunately and unknowingly, asking lousy questions that lead to lousy answers and creating a lousy life. So now, with my Afformations method, when you make it conscious, you can literally change your questions, change your actions, and change your life.
Yeah. That's one of the things I really liked is the Afformations changes your mindset right away, but you didn't stop there.
Right.
right? You then went into the habits, right?
That's right.
You created habits. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So, in my training and coaching, and that's why it's so important to realize that, because people get really excited about Afformations, and rightly so, because like, oh my gosh, I mean, as you said, the light bulb goes on, and you're like, wow, I can actually literally take conscious control of my thoughts now. Exactly, right? So again, yes, the importance of questions, but how do you use them? Well, this is how you do it. However, that's not enough, right? So it's really exactly like pouring the foundation of your house, right? So whenever you want to do something, you want to build your business, you want to have a happy relationship, you want to have good mental health and just good overall physical health, it's like building a house. I mean, there's a lot of parts to it, right? And so Afformations, the way that I teach it, is it's the foundation of everything. Because let's face it, your thoughts, your beliefs are the foundation of everything that you're going to do in your life. Right? So if you don't have a strong foundation, of course, you can't really build a very good house, right? And so that's the point. And of course, this being a real estate, program, people are pretty familiar with right, that concept,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so the point is you pour the foundation, but is the foundation a house? Well, no, it's not, but it's the beginning, right? So that's why the rest of my teaching, or the rest of the story, is what we call the power habits system. The power habits, and the full name of it, and this is kind of a mouthful, is the power habits of unconsciously successful people. Okay, now that's a mouthful, but let me break it down for you. It's actually very simple. So we're all familiar, I'm sure people watching this program are familiar with Stephen Covey and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Also going back even further than that, Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich, right? So those are 2 of the seminal works in self-help. Being the self-help nerd that I am, I studied those works very, diligently. And so the point is, what they both did, both of those, teachers, they basically talked to and studied very successful people. Like going back to Napoleon Hill, all right? So he studied and talked to and interviewed a lot of highly successful people of the day. This was about a century ago. And he basically says, so how'd you become so successful? Well, I did this, 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 and this. Okay, great. Let's do this, this, and this, and you become successful. Boom, that was easy, right? So how come millions of people have read that book and they're not successful, right? And I'm not putting it down, I'm just saying, what didn't they tell us? But that is, in fact, the point. So what I teach is what I call the power habits of unconsciously successful people. This is what highly successful people do unconsciously that they don't even realize they're doing. So let me show everybody what this means. So as we want to do a habit, we humans, we always go through 4 stages to do a new habit or master something, right? So we go through 4 stages. The first is unconscious incompetence. That means you don't know you don't know. The second is conscious incompetence. That means you don't know. The the third stage is conscious competence, which is you do, you know. And then the fourth and final stage is unconscious competence, which is you do without thinking. All right, so the example I always like to give in my training and in my coaching is driving a car, right? Probably everybody watching this program knows how to drive a car, but you actually had to go through those 4 stages. First, you didn't know how to drive a car. Nobody comes out of the womb and goes, hey, where's my car? Right? It doesn't work that way, right? You just don't even know. Then the second stage is you get to a point where you're like, gee, I'd like to drive a car, but oh shoot, I don't know how to drive a car. Then the third stage is you take driver's ed, and I remember it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much going on, and there's so many things going on, and it's really hard. And then all of a sudden you master it, and finally today, probably for most people watching this, they drive without thinking, literally. And you're unconsciously competent. And there's millions of things, not millions, but probably hundreds or dozens of things we do every day that we do, brushing your teeth, tying your shoes, getting dressed in the morning, et cetera, that we had to go through those 4 phases. Well, what I realized in studying all these highly successful people is that's exactly what happened. They are doing things unconsciously that allow them to be very successful. So I call them the naturals of success. This is the top 1%, okay? And they're doing things unconsciously. And in fact, Afformations is a great example of that. They're unconsciously asking these empowering questions like, well, why can't I do that? Whereas 99% of the planet is going, why can't I do it, right? Or I'm not good enough. Whereas the highly successful, the naturals, are saying, well, of course I can do it. What's your problem? And so that's one of the reasons why it's so funny that so many people go to, the gurus and these, big names out there, and then they're still frustrated because they go, well, gee, I spent all this money, I paid all these guys all this money, and I'm still stuck. And when they come to me and when they hire me for coaching, I go, yeah, but they left everything out that you really need. They didn't say anything wrong, they just left out all the good stuff, right? And so that's, I'll give you a great example of that, if I may, from one of my clients. So one of my clients is named Bill, and he's a real estate investor. Now, he actually heard me speak at a real estate conference several years ago. And he told me 30 years of his life going to all of these gurus, studying all this stuff. In fact, he literally had a master's degree in psychology. He studied all of this. And he was doing okay. He was doing all right. But he knew he could do a lot better. And he said he just kept like hitting that wall, and he didn't understand why. So he actually came to one of my programs, and he heard me speak about this, about the naturals, about affirmations and power habits, etc. And he said something just clicked for him. But he was still very skeptical. And he was like, yeah, it's probably the same thing I've heard before. In fact, he came up to me afterwards. It was actually really funny. And he said, yeah, what makes this different from everything else that I've done? And I said, well, the results speak for themselves, Bill. I mean, it's really up to you. He was kind of expecting a sales pitch, and I didn't give him one because I'm like, it kind of sells itself, right? You either kind of get it or you don't, and it's okay either way. Anyway, so he finally end up signing with me and hired me as his coach. Anyway, what happened was because of the light that went on with Bill throughout the whole system, he started doing multi-million-dollar deals, and then he started doing multi-billion-dollar deals, real estate deals. Okay, and now, he is on the wall of fame in his company, and all of that happened in less than 3 years after he started to understand what was missing, the unconscious success, what highly successful people are doing unconsciously. And that's why it took the nerdiest nerd in the industry to actually break it down, right? To say, okay, here's what they're doing that they just can't tell you. And it's not like they're doing it on purpose. They're not leaving it out on purpose. And I know this because I've interviewed about 150 very successful people, again, the top 1%. And I will often say to them, do you ever realize, or did you ever think about the fact that you do this and this? And they go, huh, yeah, you're right, I do that. I never thought of that before. Now, what does that show you? They're unconscious. Right? And again, they didn't do it on purpose. They weren't being mean about it. They just didn't think of it. So when you're unconscious at something, a lot of times you don't know you're doing it, which means you don't say it, right? And so that's why it took the nerd to do it. The Sheldon Cooper of self-help.
So it's almost that it's their factory settings.
That's a great way to say it.
So they're not keeping anything from us.
And they're basically saying, well, what's wrong with you idiots? Just do it, right? And isn't that the classic, exhortation from the gurus? Just do it, And for them, they're like, what is the problem here? And see, they literally don't have that fear, that which most people have, or I'm not good enough, which is another thing that I talk about called your head trash, right? Your head trash is the voice in your head that says, well, I can't do it because. Right? And everybody fills that in. Well, I can't do it because I don't have the time, because I don't have the money, because I'm not smart enough, because I'm not good enough, or whatever. The naturals don't have that. They're like, of course I can do it. What's wrong with you morons?
Yeah, I want to come back to head trash because that's quite a title for a book. I'm very intrigued. But I want to stay with Bill for a moment.
Absolutely.
Because he's perfect for us. This
Yes.
is somebody who's been in real estate,
Yes.
30 years, highly educated
Yes.
in real estate,
Yes.
but not getting where he's going.
That's right.
What was he missing?
Well, it really was the entirety of what we call the power habit system, the power habits of unconsciously successful people. So it starts with Afformations. So that's what's great about it is, I can teach that Afformations concept in 5 minutes. And that's the beauty of it. And anybody, your wife and any skeptics out there can master it, literally in about 5 minutes. And it can change your life. And literally in just a very short amount of time. But what we need to do is realize that, well, that's just the first step, as I was saying. That's the foundation. And so the point is, when you look at, another great example is something that I call goal-free zones. Now, goal-free zones is something that I came up with over 2 decades ago, right? Because I've been doing this since 1997. I think I mentioned, oh no, I don't think I did. Anyway, I started, when I had these epiphanies, I told you I was a 30-year-old college student. So I was living in a 300-square-foot basement apartment, with $800 to my name and a book on HTML. So I didn't know anything about how to run a business, how to do online marketing or sales or anything like that. And back in those days, you couldn't even take credit cards online. I literally put up the ugliest website you ever saw, and then I just said, hey, send me a check and I'll send you a book. And people would do it. And then we started to get these incredible success stories, and that's how it literally all started way back then. But the point is that, with Bill, one of the things that what I helped him with, and that's part of the power habit system, and what I realized that highly successful people do naturally, again, their default setting, is what I call goal-free zones. Now, a goal-free zone is a time and place in your life when you give yourself permission to stop. Literally permission to stop setting goals. Now you say, well, that sounds really dumb. What's the point of that? Well, the reason for that is several-fold. One is that most people feel guilt. I shouldn't say most people, but many people feel guilty when they stop. right? In other words, what are we told? We're told the hustle and the grind, right? That's what a lot of the gurus talk about, right? Is the hustle and the grind. Work 18 hours a day, and if you're not working on Christmas Eve, you're a loser. Right? And then, of course, you have the other guys who say, well, if you're working more than 4 hours a week, you're an idiot. Great, so I'm either a loser or an idiot. This is wonderful, And so that's the point, is we have to realize that there's a fine balance in there, right? And that is giving yourself permission to stop. So that was one of the things with Bill and many of my other clients, is they felt guilty when they stopped. When I said, you can give yourself permission to not be doing something that is goal-oriented. Another reason for goal-free zones is because many people feel like their worth comes from what they do, right? And of course, that's very common among men, typically, but also women feel the same way. Many women do. And so giving yourself permission to stop makes you realize that, wait a minute, I have worth outside of my work. What I do doesn't define who I am. But for many people, that is very confusing, let's just say.
Sure, where
right?
the scorecard is what car are you driving, right?
Exactly. So that's one of the reasons, and also just to get back in touch with that still small voice within, that, when you're constantly on social media and just the crush of information that we have today, which is not going anywhere, we have to put these boundaries in our own lives. And especially with so many people working from home right now, right? And, there is no boundary between work and home, or between work and life even. And so that's why it's so important for people to realize you need to give yourself permission to stop for your mental health, for your emotional health, and for your spiritual health as well.
Yeah, probably during this time more than ever, right?
Exactly.
So I want to go back. You mentioned head trash.
Yes.
So you've got an interesting title to a book, right?
Yes.
How to get rid of your head trash.
It's called Get Rid of Your Head Trash About Money.
About money.
Yes.
Explain.
Yeah, absolutely, sure. Okay, so when people are, people watching this program, when you think about what you want, right, for any of us, what do we want, right? Well, what I have broken that down into is what I call the 4 elements of what I call a freedom lifestyle, which is having more time, more energy, happier relationships, and more money. Those 4 elements: more time, more energy, happier relationships, and more money. I don't think you could find too many people who say, no, I don't think I want that, right? I think, yeah, that's pretty common. Now, of course, within that, there are innumerable and infinite number of variations, right? So what that means to each person, of course, is very different. But I think we can all say, yes, I'd like more time, more energy, better relationships, and more money, all right? So when we think about that, that's what we want. That's the goal, right? Well, what are we doing to get it? What have we tried? Well, we've tried probably lots of things. Probably people have tried going to different seminars, reading lots of books, going to the gurus, paying people a lot of money, or whatever it might be. And yet, they don't have what they want. So why is that? Well, one of the reasons is because of this phenomenon that I call head trash. All right? So head trash is the voice in your head that says, I can't do it because, ... And then you just fill in the blank with whatever you believe. Right? So, okay, I want that thing, but, I can't do it. I can't do it because I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I can't afford it. Oh, my wife won't let me do it. Or I didn't grow up in the right city. I didn't go to the right college. I'm married. I'm divorced. I have kids. I don't have kids. I'm a Martian. Whatever it is. I mean, we all have these different excuses, right? But here's the key for people to realize is that when you tell yourself, I can't do it because, you're going to make yourself right. See, Henry Ford had a great quote, which is he said, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. But what I like to say, with all due respect to Mr. Ford, I'd like to update a little bit. I like to say, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you make yourself right. You make yourself right. Because think about it. If you're arguing for your limitations, then you get to keep them. Well, no, I want to do that. I want to have more money. I want to grow my business. I want to write a book, or I want to do online courses, or I want to grow my business like you have and like your clients have, but I can't do it because, ... Right? And then they just fill it in. I say, great, you just argued for your limitations, so congratulations, you get to keep them. They're like, but I don't want to keep them. I'm like, but you just said it, right? See, and they don't realize they're doing this, of course. Now, why do we do this? Well, of course, the answer is to keep ourselves safe. All right, so this goes, back to good old brain science, right? And the human brain's job. Now, the brain has basically 2 major parts. Okay, to get into neuroscience a little bit, but I mean, this isn't complicated. There's the frontal cortex, which is our higher thought process and communication, what we're speaking with and communicating with right now. But then there's the back part of the brain, which is that little limbic brain, or the lizard brain, or croc brain, and call it whatever you want. It's the ancient brain, and that's the old fight or flight, right? But really, it's fight, flight, or freeze. Exactly. And so that's the point, is that its job is to keep you not dead. That's its job, keep you not dead. So literally, it's basically there saying, hey, I didn't die today, you're welcome. And it doesn't care if you're living under a bridge. It doesn't care if you can't pay your mortgage. It doesn't care if you can't pay your bill. It doesn't care. And it's like, hey, you're not dead. You're welcome. I did my job. What are you complaining about? Meanwhile, the front part's going, hey, I'd like some money over here, right? I'd like to do something. Hello. It's like, I don't care. Isn't that funny? And so, but that's really the communication so that's why fear, again, going back to that excuse, because it's safe. So at the same time we humans want success, we also want to be safe. So it's a constant battle, right, between those two parts of the brain, literally, parts of ourselves. Okay, and so that's why head trash is safe, but it will also keep you stuck. And that's why if you want to reach your goals faster, easier, and with a lot less effort, we need to, number one, become consciously aware of that head trash, and then, of course, get rid of it.
Yeah, so you've talked, that was one of the things I was interested in, that head trash, how it keeps you stuck.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You also talked about the smart people still make some basic mistakes when it comes to money.
Yes.
Right? I think you mentioned 3 mistakes. What's the number one thing you see even smart people do?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the subtitle of the book, as you mentioned. Yeah, it's how to avoid the 3 big money mistakes even smart people make. And everybody watches this program, of course, very smart, but they may be making one or more of these mistakes without realizing it. And that's, well, me too. Why do you think I wrote all these books? Anyway, but the number one mistake that people make is not being aware of their head trash. Literally not being aware of it. So think about it this way: when you want to reach your goal, it's like driving a car. Right? I use that analogy a lot because people can relate to it, right? So you're driving your car. So imagine you're driving your car, and even if you're just going down the road for groceries, right? From your home to the grocery store, or you're taking a cross-country trip. I mean, whatever you're doing, you're going from where you are to where you want to be. So it's just like that with your goals. I'm here where I am, and I want to be over here, right? Reach my goal. More time, more energy, better relationships, more money. That's what I want. Okay, so you're driving your car. So imagine that you're driving your car, but unbeknownst to you, you have one foot on the brake. How long is it going to take you to reach your goal? It's going to take you forever, right? Because you won't get there. Now, here's what happens in the personal development, in the coaching industry. So coach number 1 comes along, and they say, you know what your problem is? You need a better type of gas. This gas isn't good enough. You need to get this high-octane gas. So you go, oh, okay. You go to the gas station, put in the high-octane gas, spend a lot of money. You get back in your car, but you're still doing the same habit. You still have your foot on the brake. Same result. Coach number 2 comes along and say, well, you know what you need? You need a new set of tires. Those tires aren't good enough. You need these super duper tires. Okay, you go to the tire store, spend more money, put the tires on the car, same habit, same result. Coach number 3 comes along. You know what you need? You need a new car. This car isn't good enough. You got to trade in this car, get a really high-end super car, and that'll get you to your goals faster. Well, I guess that makes sense. All right, so you go to the car place, you trade in your old car, which was perfectly fine, right? And you get this shiny new car, spend a lot of money, you get in the car, same habit, same result. So what I do is I come along and say, excuse me, did you know you have your foot on the brake? And you're like, no. I said, did you know that if you get your foot off the brake, we can actually get you to your goals a lot faster and easier and a lot less effort? Really? Yeah, and there's a system to do that. We just get your foot off the brake and you can reach your goals a lot faster and easier. Oh, let's do it, right? I mean, you see what I mean? So it's literally that simple. Now, of course, nobody consciously drives down the road of life with one foot on the brake, right? It would be like saying, you wake up in the morning and go, yeah, wow, this looks like a beautiful day. The birds are singing and the sun is shining. I think I'll hold myself back from success today, right? I mean, nobody would ever do that, right? Because that would be what? A conscious thought. But see, the human mind is like an iceberg, right? And, about 5% that's visible above the surface, the vast 95% below the surface, meaning that's the conscious mind, what we know we're thinking, and then we've got the vast subconscious, which we don't know what it is. As I always say to my coaching clients, it wasn't the part of the iceberg that they could see that sunk the Titanic, it's the part they didn't see that sunk the Titanic and sinks us too, right? So that's the part. So that's one of the things, again, not just my Afformations method, but the entire Power Habits system, the coaching system that we use. One of the things that it does, it takes from the subconscious, because when you're acting from the subconscious, it means no choice. When you don't know you're doing something, you're not aware of it, therefore you can't change it, right? So in fact, one of my clients years ago, he said this, he said, as we were doing this work, it was like you turned a light on in a room that had been dark my whole life. And I realized that's exactly what it is. That is in fact exactly right, because think about this. Imagine if you're in your room right now or your home, and all of a sudden, you're just going throughout your day, and all of a sudden somebody turns out all the lights on you. It's completely dark. And then they say, all right, now I want you to rearrange the furniture. And you're like, well, I can't see. And then they say, well, set your goals. Come on, think positive. You can do it. Now notice, that's what coaches are doing, right? That's a typical coaching thing, is to exhort you, right? Come on, think positive, you can do it. You're like, all right, fine. And you, ow, man, I can't see, ow, my shit, right? I can't see. Right? So does that mean you're incapable of rearranging furniture? No, you're perfectly capable and you can see what you're doing. So what I do is I come in and I go, click. There it is. Oh, now I can see, right? I didn't know it was there. Now you can rearrange the furniture however you want, you see. So that is, in fact, exactly what it's like. When it's in the subconscious, you just can't see it. And that's why, like with Bill and with many of my other clients, that's what happened. The light bulb went on. And it's like, oh, I didn't know I was doing that. Well, now you know, and now you can make a choice.
So that's clearing out the head trash.
Yes.
That's how you get the light on.
Yes,
So
that's one way.
And you keep mentioning habits.
Yes.
Because I think that's, like, I love the Afformations is the foundation, but then you have to act.
That's right.
And habits, like you said, they're subconscious, right?
Yes.
They're habits because you just do them.
Right.
I was really interested that you said, you say that willpower is the wrong way
Yes.
to get rid of a habit.
Yes.
Where we've kind of been taught,
Yes.
suck it up.
Grit your teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why not willpower?
Right.
And talk about ARC.
Right. Noah's Ark.
Yeah.
I had to do that, right? With a name like Noah, we'd had to do Noah's Ark, right? So, and by the way, it's ARC in this case, ARC. But, okay, so why is willpower the worst way to change a habit? So think about this. Imagine you have a plate of chocolate chip cookies there in your kitchen, right? And you're in your kitchen every day, you go buy the plate of chocolate chip cookies, and, you smell it, and you can waft it, and you can see it, and you're like, man, my mouth's watering just thinking about it, right? And you're like, and so this person says to you, now don't eat a chocolate chip cookie. Don't eat that. Now don't look at it. Don't do it. What are you going to do? You're going to have a damn cookie, right? You're going to have a chocolate chip cookie. I mean, you just have to, because you can't take it. It's like, See, this is also, by the way, this is why diets don't work. Because you're trying to keep yourself from something. And the human being doesn't like to, have something kept from them, right? And so that's why diets don't work, because you're trying to use willpower, which is grit your teeth, make yourself stop doing something. And the funny thing about a habit is you can't actually stop a habit. The only thing you can do is replace a habit. Okay, so think about this. So let's take a habit, which is a classic habit like procrastination, right? That's a classic habit that, in fact, it's the number one habit that my clients, when they hire me, they say, Noah, I got to stop procrastinating. How do I do it, right? And I've tried everything, they say, right? And so the point is we have to look at what a habit actually is. So a habit actually is 5 stages. Okay, again, this is neuroscience. So the first stage is a cue or trigger. That means something happens in your life that triggers the habit. Okay, the second stage is a routine. That means what you do. That's what the habit actually is. The third stage is the reward is the third step. Okay, so it's cue, routine, reward. So meaning a reward in the brain, meaning we don't do anything for no reason. Okay, and then there's the craving, which actually means that's why you keep doing a habit. And then the final step is a belief. That's your belief about your ability to change that habit. So if you take something like procrastination, what's the cue or trigger? Well, what I often say is procrastination is not just not doing something. It's not doing something you know would be helpful to you. Right? Think about that, right? Because we all don't do hundreds of things every day, right? We don't run in front of traffic every day. That would be a silly thing to do, a bad thing to do, right? So you're not procrastinating on that. You're just not doing it, right? But procrastination would be something like, well, I really need to make that phone call. I should really talk to that client, or I should really write that email, or do a blog post, or do a video or something that would help my business or help my life or whatever it might be, right? But I think I'll go watch Netflix. Right? So that's the routine. You have the thing that happens, and then you do something else. Right? Now, why? Because of the reward in the brain. And what I talked about earlier, brain's job is to keep you not dead. Hey, it's safe. Right? Watching Netflix is safe. Nothing wrong with it. It's not wrong. It's just not exactly going to grow your business unless maybe you're the owner of Netflix. Right? But that's the thing. And it keeps you safe. And then you have a craving for safety, the brain does. And then the belief is, I'm just a procrastinator. I can't do it. Boom, there you go. And you made yourself right. Ta-da, you're right. Okay, so here's what we can do. All we have to do is change actually two things. So the first thing you do is just do a new routine. So you have the same trigger. I think about doing that thing. Now you have, instead of doing something else, do the thing. I know, it's like, what? Huh? This is really hard. I know, this is like brain science here, right? This is rocket science. No, it's like, just do it, right? But I'm scared. No kidding. That's your belief. Oh, why do you think I taught you Afformations before? Why can't I do it? Why am I enough? What if I could do it? What if it did work out? Huh? Yeah, I know, these are new thoughts for your brain, for most humans. Not the naturals, they're already there. They're already there, and they're like, what's wrong with you guys? And so that's the point. It's like, now we can actually bridge the gap between the 99% and the 1%. And this is one of the ways to do it. And so you just do it, and that's why people go, oh my gosh, Noah. I mean, I had another client who, when he hired me, I was speaking at a seminar in Los Angeles, and I was speaking to about 1,000 entrepreneurs. These were 7- and 8-figure CEOs, very successful people. And I had just finished speaking, and I was walking off the stage. He literally ran up to me, and he said, Noah, I want to hire you as my coach. You're the coach I've been looking for. Now, I didn't know this man from Adam. Ironically, his name was Adam. And so I said, okay, what's going on? He says, Noah, I'm totally stuck. I'm only making $4 million a year. I said, okay, that doesn't sound like a big problem, right? A lot of people like to be stuck, with air quotes, at $4 million a year, right? This doesn't sound like a big problem. He goes, no, Noah, I'm the CEO of this company, and we got to $4 million in revenues really fast, but we've been plateaued for the last 4 years. 4 years. And he said, I've thrown so much money at this, he's hired every guru, he named all the big names, and we're still stuck. He said, as soon as I heard you speak about head trash and Afformations and getting your foot off the brake, he said, I knew you're the coach I've been looking for. He literally hired me on the spot. So I worked with him for about 1.5 years. In that time, his company went from being stuck at $4 million for the previous 4 years to over $20 million in revenues in 1 year. Okay, and so how did it happen? It's because of what I'm saying right now. Right, so we were able to look at what he was doing, his habits, see what his head trash was that he was holding himself back on that he didn't know. And then when we were able to clear that out, I mean, he just got his foot off the brake and boom.
So what was holding him back? I mean, this is somebody who was successful.
Yes,
right?
But he had reached that plateau. I call it the income ceiling law. The income ceiling law states that, once you get to the point that you think you can't make any more money, or you don't deserve to make any more money, or whatever that head trash might be, that's it, you're done. So you can throw all the money you want at it, but you haven't gotten rid of the thing that is in fact holding you back. Again, the foot on the brake. So all these other guys come in and say, step on the gas harder. In fact, on my website, he has a cool video that he talks about that everybody else out there is in fact saying, step on the gas harder. And that's not wrong, it just doesn't work, right? In this case, for 99% of humans who have their foot on the brake unconsciously, unknowingly, unwittingly. So that's why the power habit system with Afformations as part of it is getting your foot off the brake. And doesn't it just make sense then that you can work less and make a lot more because you're not stopping yourself. So that for him, it in fact was the difference, was he was unknowingly, unwittingly stopping himself because of that head trash, those limiting beliefs.
So as successful as he was, he had an unconscious belief that was the end of the line?
That was it. Yeah, and so that's the point. He was, throwing all this money at it with the foot on the gas, okay, which I keep repeating this, but I'll just say it because it bears repeating. It's not wrong. It just doesn't work.
So that's an odd thing to me that you would get to a point and think, well, that's as good as it gets. But for some reason, I think that's probably really common.
Oh, incredibly common. Absolutely.
So why would you get to a point? What's going on with us where we get to a point and go, 4 million's about as good as I can do?
Well, of course, it's different for every person.
Sure.
But I'll give you a common example. A common example is religion. Okay, so religion basically says that, if you're rich, you must be a selfish, bad person. And, I mean, I was raised Catholic, so that's what I heard about 1 million times, right? And I don't know why they say that exactly. I'm sure there's lots of reasons. But the point is that I did believe, why do you think I wrote all these books? I did believe that I couldn't, if I made more than X amount, whatever the X is, then I'm a bad, selfish person. And that's a very common one that my clients come to me with. And they don't realize they're doing it. And they go, oh, wait a minute. You mean and what I always say is money doesn't change anything. It reveals everything. Money doesn't change anything, it reveals everything. So what that means is, if you're a jerk who has no money, and then you get money, you'll just be a rich jerk, only jerkier, right? But if you're a nice person who doesn't have any money, and then you get money, you just become a nicer person. Because think about it, what can you do with money? Well, you can support worthy causes. You can donate to your church or to your local hospital or community organizations, or lots of good things that you can do with this thing called money. And of course, if you don't have it, then you can't do any of those things, okay? And so if you're a selfish jerk who gets money, you'll just be selfisher and jerkier. But if you're a nice person and a giving person, you'll just be nicer and more giving. And I mean, that's just it. Money doesn't change anything. It reveals everything. So they're scared, frankly. Not everybody, of course, but many people are scared that, oh, once I make X amount, I'll become a selfish jerk. No, you won't. You'll just, if you're already nice, you'll just be nicer and able to help more people.
Do you find there's one particular thing that holds people back more than anything else?
Well, I mean, the overall heading of that is, in fact, head trash, which of course can be different for each person. But there are general things that we can talk about, like I was just saying, like if I make a lot of money, I'll become, a selfish jerk. That's a very, very common belief, right? So notice that if you think that, and then you start to approach that level of income, money, revenue, whatever you might say, then you go, oops, I better put on the brake. Uh-oh, right? I better put on the brake because I don't want to be that selfish jerk. And notice in the media, by the way, what are the only people that can be bad nowadays? Wealthy people, right? Those are the only people that it's okay to have as the villain, right, in these movies, is wealthy people. And so that's all we see in the media. Meanwhile, I know that you and I both have a lot of rich friends, and they're mostly pretty nice people,
Yeah, and they tend to provide jobs.
Right, exactly. But see, we don't hear that on the media or in the movies and stuff because it doesn't sell tickets, right? So, but most rich people are pretty nice people, and that's why Thomas Stanley years ago wrote The Millionaire Next Door. They're probably right next door to you, and you don't even know it. Okay, so but that's the thing. We have to have these new realities or new awarenesses of what money and what wealth really means, not just what the movies and the media tell us.
So one of the things I like about you and what you do is you work with celebrities, high-level CEOs, athletes, but you also work with the average person. Different in mindset around money between the two?
Yes and no. I mean, that's what's interesting. And that's one of the reasons that coaching is so important. I mean, it's so important to have that, what I call a loving mirror, someone who believes in you before you believe in yourself. And frankly, even more than you believe in yourself. That's another part of my Power Habit system is finding that coach, that mentor, that loving mirror that believes in you more than you believe in yourself. Because what's so amazing about the naturals, going back to the one percenters that I was talking about, they all had that person. They all had someone who believed in them before they believed in themselves. So it's so funny because in traditional success literature, what we hear all the time is, what's the key to success is believe in yourself. That's the key. We've heard that a million times, right? If you want to be successful, you got to believe in yourself. Well, I heard all these guys say this a million times. I'm sitting in the back going, but I don't believe in myself. So what am I supposed to do, right? And of course, they never told me. They never said anything. They just went on to the next thing. I'm going, so I guess I'm out of luck, So what about the rest of us? Meanwhile, that's when I realized most people don't believe themselves. And those guys, the gurus on stage, they all had someone believe in them. And see, notice that since they always had it, they weren't aware of it as an important thing. Right? So that's another reason why it's so important to get a coach, a mentor, someone to believe in you. So think about it. The analogy I always like to give is as a personal trainer. Right? So if you ever work with a personal trainer, well, let's back up a minute. Let's say you want to get in shape, right? You want to get your body in shape. So left to our own devices, what do most people do? You go, well, all right, I think I'm going to do my sit-ups now. Ready? 1, 2, okay, I'm good. Right? and you're like, that didn't do anything, right? But what happens is as soon as we get to that point, we all say, oh, that's enough, right? I can't do any more. Now, what does a personal trainer do? A personal trainer will come in and say, hey, let's go. What are you doing here? Come on, you got more. And you're like, no, but I can't do it. Yes, you can. No, I can't. Yes, you can. No, I can't. Yes, you can. Oh, I did it. You see, but without that person there, literally exhorting you. So going back to Adam, that's one of the things that I did. He didn't think he could do it. And I said, well, of course you can do it. I mean, there's no problem here. But when you're inside the jar, you can't read the outside of the label, right? And so that's what a loving mirror, a coach, a mentor can do, is read the outside of the label and go, Oh, of course you can do it. But that's the problem, of course, because all of us, we've been dealing with our own issues, our own problems for so long, we can't see our way out of it a lot of times. So that's why having that outside person is so crucial. The coach, the mentor that can see and believe in you, literally more than you believe in yourself. It's one of the things that the naturals always had, and because they always had it, they don't even realize the importance of it, hence the unconscious competence. And so that's why for the rest of it, it's like rest of us, it's like a bridge that can get us from where we are to where we want to be.
Thank you for all of that. So I want to get kind of specific here for a moment. If, let's say, you've got somebody new in real estate, they want to get going, and they come to you, they want you as a coach. So you're going to start with explaining Afformations.
Right.
So what kind of affirmations, how would you start guiding me down the road to success?
Absolutely. So with everything that I do as a coach, there are always two components of it. In fact, in all success has two components. And that's what I call the inner game and the outer game. So if you think of two circles that meet in the middle here, the inner game is everything that happens between your ears that you can't see directly, but it affects everything that you do. So those are things like your beliefs, your thoughts, your unconscious things that are going on in here, right? That's the inner game. But then you have the outer game, which is everything you can see directly. That's your habits, your lifestyle, the systems, strategies, all the blocking and tackling, that entrepreneurs, that real estate investors, that people have to do every day, right? So when you look at inner game and outer game, it's only when you combine those two things that you have the thing called success, that phenomenon called success, only when you master the inner game and outer game. So like going back to Adam for a second, that's what we mostly worked on. 85%, almost 90% was inner game. And that's what's holding most people back is inner game. So when a real estate investor comes to me, no matter if they're brand new, if they've been doing it for a while, or if, like Bill, they've been doing it for 30 years, it really doesn't matter because what they've been trained on is outer game. Here's how to do real estate investing. Well, you do this, and you do this, and you do this, and you do this. So what are most people doing? Not doing that, not doing that, not doing that, not doing that. They're watching Netflix. Again, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I think people understand. Basically, here's what to do, and they do something else, right? Why? Well, it's because of everything we've been talking about, the head trash, the beliefs. So the first thing that we would do is, well, number one, we would say, well, why aren't you doing what you know to do in the first place? And then they'd give me every excuse in the book. Well, I don't have the time, I don't have the money, I don't have the connections, and da-da-da-da-da. Great. So how's that going for you? Right? Well, I'm not getting the result. Really? That's interesting. I wonder why. Right? And so do you see what I mean? So you have to, first of all, understand why are you stopping yourself from success in the first place? And the reason, of course, it always boils down to some form of fear. Right? I'm afraid of what my spouse will say. I'm afraid of what my family might do. I'm afraid if it doesn't work. I'm afraid of failure. I'm afraid of success. I'm afraid of whatever. And that's perfectly legitimate. Remember, your brain's saying, hey, I'm not dead. You're welcome. Okay, so that's perfectly legitimate, but it's also not getting you the result that you want, right? So that's step number one is understand what are the excuses, what is the head trash that's actually holding you back. Number two is understand the cost. What is it costing you to actually be carrying around this head trash? All right, so think about this. And this is one of the reasons I use the term head trash because for everybody watching, imagine in your home right now and you decided, I don't think I want to take out the trash this week. I'm just going to let it pile up for a while. I don't feel like taking it out. Great, you let a week go by. Then you let 2 weeks go by. Nah, I don't feel like taking out the trash. Then 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year, you haven't taken out the trash. What is it like in your home? Kind of gross, right? Not so hot. How many people do you know that have been carrying around trash in their head for 5, 10, 20, 30 years or more, right? So think about it. It's kind of gross in there. Not to be mean, but, it's a little gross, meaning we have all these excuses, reasons why I can't do it because. All right, so you have to understand, what is that costing you? Well, the truth is it's costing you time with your family, time to do the things you really want to do. It's costing you energy. Maybe instead of having, joyful, happy emotions, maybe you're feeling angry, frustrated, depressed, whatever, every day. What about your relationships? What's it costing you in your relationships? Maybe you're not able to spend time with your family or go on those fun vacations or do all the things you want to do. And money, it's obviously going to cost you money, right? For Bill, billion-dollar deals, right? Not just multi-million, but billion-dollar deals. And so once you understand what you're saying to yourself and what it's costing you, then you can make a determination. What do I want to do now, right? Do I want to keep paying that cost? Or am I willing to do something to stop paying that cost? Because everything has a cost, right? Success has a cost, but failure has a cost too. Which cost do you want to pay, right? Which one do you want to? And now once we bring it to the conscious mind, remember I said earlier, nobody wakes up and says, I think I'll hold myself back from success today. But now that you're conscious of it, you're going, oh, shoot, I am holding myself back. I didn't mean to, I didn't want to. But now you can make a conscious choice. Now what am I going to do? Because as I always like to say, it's not your fault that these things may have happened to you. But now that you know, now it's your responsibility to do something about it. So even if it's not your fault, it's your responsibility to take action. And all of us can do that, even if it's just one small step a day. You don't have to eat the elephant all in one sitting. Just take one bite at a time, one little step at a time, and those little steps can add up to a transformation that can and will be life-changing.
And you use affirmations to clean out the head trash.
That's one of the ways, yeah. I think it's the most effective cleaner that I've ever seen because of what I said, because you're already doing it. Every person on this planet is already using my Afformations method. They just don't know it, and they're using it in a disempowering way. And by the way, that word disempowering is very important, because disempowering means it takes away your power to act. That's why what we want to do is flip the disempowering to the empowering. That means I have the power to act. And remember, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is correct action in the face of fear. Courage comes from the Latin word cor, which means heart. Right? So when you're acting in courage, you're acting from your heart, not your head, that will say, oh, I'm too scared. Your heart says, let's do it anyway, and we move forward from there.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Really great having you here.
Thank you.
And I started using Afformations, and I think for me, when I was making a list, I put, why am I so joyful? And that one hits every day, because I've got, and it floods me with all the things that I'm lucky to have in my life. Wow. And then I realized, why aren't you aware of this every minute of every day? I'm so lucky.
Well, that's why I'm so excited to be here, so we can get more people in the Afformations revolution, and that's how we can change people's awareness and start to change the world.
No, again, thank you so much for being here. I love the Afformations. I've already started, and after this conversation, I know what I need to do to get off the fence and move forward with real estate, which is what I really want to do.
Awesome.
Well, James, that completes your Noah St. John interview. You know, mindset's important no matter where you apply it, right? And I guess that's especially true in real estate, do you think?
Yeah, he was really interesting to talk to because it went beyond real estate. There was a lot of just life advice from Noah.
Right.
It was really enjoyable to listen to.
Great. Well, I appreciate you being here with us. I hope you enjoyed that interview. That completes episode 5 of our 9-part docuseries, Hacking Real Estate. It's great to be here with you. Thank you so much. If you're someone who's already invested, we really appreciate the fact that you decided to own this series. And if you haven't, now's a good time to consider it. Again, big discounts, bonuses. We're in the free viewing period. Check it out. I look forward to seeing you in episode 6.
I learned that if you have all your eggs in the government's basket, that basket can get flipped upside down pretty quick, so you probably shouldn't do that. Because someone says you can do something in 5 hours a week, you also have to use a little bit of common sense to understand that A, do you have 5 hours a week to give? And B, is it really 5 hours or is it 15 or is it 20? And if it is, do you have that and do you really want to use your time that you could be spending with your family to do that? There's 3 things that you need to buy properties, right? You need time, you need knowledge, and you need money. You don't need to have all 3 of those, but you do need to have 2 of them.
If you're buying something and just hope that the market carries it, then you could be sorely disappointed. If you find something that you can breathe life into and fix and change it and make it better, then you actually force and create your own value, and those opportunities are everywhere. And I'm telling you, there's so much knowledge. So go out and find and start looking at deals, start underwriting deals, start getting in some of these masterminds and some of these groups, and do that first and see if you even like it.